Welcome to Beyond the Powerline Road, a podcast dedicated to interviewing inspiring people and inspirational stories. With us today, we have Mark Howell from Utopia, and I think you will very much enjoy hearing about Mark. Mark, how are you doing today?
I do well, Dan. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so very much. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm born and raised in Texas, born in Llano, Texas, as a matter of fact. But I grew up on a cattle ranch in South Texas, and I married this little old girl I met in Sunday school.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, and so I've come from a long line of preachers on both sides of my family, and we decided to go into ministry early on in our relationship, and she had actually thought she was marrying an accountant. But it turned out to be a little different from that. But at any rate, we've been in ministry for a lot of years now.
Wow. Now, you are retired from preaching, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And do you ever really retire?
Oh, Dan, that's a great question. And the answer to it is no. Probably because it's not just a job or a career, and it's all. It's something within that you feel that you want to respond to, that you deeply believe in, and that sort of thing. So I am retired from the administrative end of it, sort of, but I don't keep the regular job requirements of a located preacher any longer.
Okay. Now, how many years did you preach before you retired?
So about 45.
Wow. And was that in Houston, is that correct?
Well, it ended up in Houston.
Oh,
It started in Austin in youth ministry and being an associate minister, and from there I went to school at Harding, and from there we planted churches. I became a part of a team. We planted churches up in Pennsylvania,
oh, neat.
and then I moved back down to the Arkansas area, worked with a congregation, and then became a part of the old Sharpstown congregation in Houston area. And from there, we actually moved that congregation to another location, and I've spent the last 33 years in that congregation.
Amazing, amazing. So, once you retired, you moved to Utopia. What prompted that decision?
I had the sense that it was time for us to change up a little bit. I mean, our congregation was we were going in a good direction. The congregation had a lot of younger people that I felt like would respond more to someone in their demographic, and I had the opportunity to stay. In fact, they asked me to stay in other capacities, but we felt like we were looking for a change, and we were gonna the ranch life was calling me here on some inherited property on the Sabinal River in Utopia, Texas.
You know, once a farmer or rancher, always a farmer or rancher, as they say.
So it didn't get out of your system.
That's right. Almost impossible to do so. So, how does it feel watching others preach after you've done it so long? Do you miss it?
I do and I don't. I mean, I love to preach, and I still do it. I have opportunity to do it periodically as we're members here. Have the opportunity to preach and teach, but to not be sort of under the control of all the duties and time restraints of being a preacher, it's a whole other enterprise that way. I mean, preaching is it's just different. And one of the things that I really enjoy about it is that I study more for myself. When you're in ministry, you're always thinking about the congregation and what you need to do and where you need to go and the kinds of topics that you need to look at and what studies you need to be doing and so on and so forth. Now it's sort of a matter where I have a little more time to preach when I feel like I really needed to do that. And I've got time for, family and grandkids and all of that sort of thing. So, and that's studying for yourself. That's sort of a different thing. That's when my relationship with God changed some, deepened some, I guess. When
Nice.
you're not preparing everything for everybody else, but you're studying things that you need to be studying.
In other words, you have time to reflect a little more and time to realize where your own needs are. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. And again, you're not just studying from the standpoint of what do these people need to hear, what do they need to hear, what do we need as a congregation, but you're looking at some of the issues in your own life that you want to be studying. And I think my relationship with God has deepened somewhat as a result of that.
That is nice. That's good to know that a preacher can preach for 40 some ish years and their relationship gets deeper as they get older. That's good to hear.
Absolutely, Dan. Yeah.
So I like hearing that. What do you think is the biggest obstacle for new preachers?
For someone who is just getting into the ministry, I think managing expectations, and by that I mean your own expectations. We've all got big dreams, and sometimes life happens, church things happen, and so you got to manage your own expectations as well as the church's expectations of what you're being asked to do, what it is you ought to be doing, as opposed to sometimes maybe what they think that you ought to be doing, and that sort of thing. So I would, my advice to new preachers is to take a look at those expectations and make sure they're realistic, and you've got to take time for family. You have to take time for self growth. You want to watch about burning out. Know what those symptoms are, those signs are.
Oh.
You got to take care of yourself as you do this, or you won't be able to last for the long haul.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. You kind of answered my last question I was going to ask you, too, about advice. But I have seen preachers that have burned out, and then they've gone on to go work, not as Walmart greeters, so to speak, but maybe as accountants or something like that. And it's sad to see because it's such a calling.
Yes, and it is a calling. I think there is a deep sense of a personal responsibility you feel to God, and you have a sense of being connected to Him in a just pretty special way. And so managing those expectations are important to me.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. Any last minute comments before we close this podcast down?
Well, I'm thinking about something my grandfather said when I come from a long line of preachers on both sides of my family. I think I said something about that. But my grandfather was a preacher for years, and when he found out that I was really thinking about seriously doing this, he said, now, Mark, if you can do anything else, do it.
I'm sorry for laughing, but yeah.
No, but and he was saying that a little bit tongue in cheek, and I think somebody else had said that to him. But it is draining. It really is, but it's exhilarating at the same time.
I can imagine. Especially people that when you're trying to work on them to convert them, and then finally they see the light, so to speak. I bet you that is just exhilarating.
Oh, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that. Yeah.
I can well imagine. Well, Mark, I appreciate it. I really am glad that we finally were able to get together. And
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
You too.